recording? Yes. Today, we are going to talk about not the Convention of the Rights of the Child, but the convention that is called I.C.E.R.D or I.C.E.R.D, which refers to the racial discrimination or the discrimination in general. Hello, Laura Vera.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, that's our next point. It's Unit 4, first part. And as you have read from the website, WhatsApp group, this is our last lesson from July, I think, and then we will resume on August, on the first, or let's see, probably, on the 30th of July, we are going to start again at the point that we are going to end today. So on the 30th of July, we start with the second part of Unit 4. So a little vacation here, and as regards what you pay is the same, but we are going to take the vacation, that's it. So, because sometimes they ask me, 2 weeks more, so we have to pay more. No, it's just that we take the vacations and the installments that you pay are the same. Okay, so let me share my presentation, it goes as here. So the I.C.E.R.D convention, I.C.E.R.D convention, Unit 4. So remember that this is the first part, so this is the content part. So first of all, we are going to revise what we have in the classroom. That is why I take a sheet here and, many things. Here or not. Here. And remember that this is our classroom, and here we have Unit 4, I.C.E.R.D or I.C.E.R.D Convention, International Convention for the Elimination of the Racial Discrimination. There you have the PDF convention, then the convention in Spanish, just in case, a PowerPoint presentation, but I think that PowerPoint from today is more complete. What is this? Racial discrimination. Let's see. Well, this is a document related to racial discrimination in Argentina and in English. So it will be helpful for you in order to prepare our final work. Remember that we have to prepare final work, and it will serve as a chapter for a book. So that's one of the documents, and then racial discrimination. And this is a document related to the selective decisions of a committee that acts as an administrative organization that controls the fulfillment of the obligations under the I.C.E.R.D convention. So these are decisions that are sort of jurisprudencia or precedents related to the I.C.E.R.D convention fulfillment. And well, the I.C.E.R.D application and the I.C.J. I think that these are procedural rules related to how to file a complaint at the, yes, I remember this from last year. So the application of the I.C.E.R.D convention in a case, Qatar versus UAE before the I.C.E.R.D committee and the I.C.J. I.C.J is the International Court of Justice. So this was, I think that I'm not talking about this, but if you want, I can explain it because it's part of my presentation, but from last year. Okay, but it is uploaded on the platform. Well, this is all you have in the first part. And also 3 sites here. The I Have a Dream, the video of the speech of Luther King, and our last part will be to enjoy, will be devoted to enjoy this speech if we have time. Then the text and audio and the I.C.E.R.D webpage, which is quite complete. Let's see. United Nations Human Rights, International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and then, okay. I think that even though you have the PDF version and the Spanish version, then you have this one, which is uploaded on a platform on the website of the United Nations Human Rights Committee or Commission. Okay. All of this is on the side part. Then on the cursada part, we may follow on. So this is the first part of the first part. Then I have the second part. The first part, because this is the first week of Unit 4, but I think I have here 3 assignments, legal assignments, exercises. One assignment is this one. I can download it, and then I open it. So here you have some exercises. This is a multiple choice exercise related to I.C.E.R.D, and it refers to Article 1. And the assignment is to read the following speeches made by 3 different persons. The question is, which of the 3 speeches may be construed means interpreted as or considered discriminatory speech. So you have to pick only one which is the discriminatory speech. This is one of the content exercises. The second one is this one. So I download it and I open it. I.C.E.R.D Unit 4, Legal English Exercise. So it should go on the second part on next week, let's say. But well, matching activity. So this is a matching activity. This is an excerpt. You know that the excerpt is some paragraph that is taken from the whole text. That's an excerpt, un extracto. That's an excerpt. Excerpt from the I.C.E.R.D. So there you have the excerpt, and let's see, 1, 2 parts. So the assignment goes as a matching activity. I think that it's quite clear and quite easy, but for instance, in the excerpt, you may have the verb to set forth. So you should say, well, what is to set forth? To set forth is, what would you say, any of you? What is to set forth? It's a phrasal verb from legal English, clearly, to set forth. Any of you? Okay.
I'm trying to think of it.
Okay.
Reading all the definitions.
Okay, and you know that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then A, B, C, etc. To set forth.
Announce or forced to
set forth.
say something.
To set forth.
No.
Has to do with establishing a rule of law. So you set forth
Okay.
a rule. So probably, because I don't have here the keys, probably it is to establish there, to set forth. Let's see, to establish, to establish. The thing is that at the left you have to establish. I think that the E is not correct, or else you may Google it. Okay,
Okay.
to establish. To establish. Okay, let's see. To enter into force. I know that. To enter into force is
To become law.
that is clear. Yes. To become law, to
Yes.
become active. So you cross down to enter into force and to become law. In order to
Okay.
clarify.
So and to establish would be to set up and to bring into being on a permanent basis, right? That
I
would be
think so.
two, would be G, right?
Yeah. Well, to claim, that's to claim is claims that claim.
To assert or maintain as a fact.
Yes. 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 Because if not, para decir reclama is to file a claim, a complaint. Yes. But to claim, just to claim, is to assert or maintain as a fact. To condemn.
That is, A shall proclaim something as blameworthy.
Blameworthy. To condemn. Condenar. Condemn. In
Yes.
compliance with.
To forbid an activity by authority.
In compliance with. No.
No.
In compliance.
No.
You say, for instance, I am acting in compliance with the rules of the university. In compliance with. Conforming. Agreeing. Yes. Agreeing with. The factor with.
Yes.
Shall declare punishable. Punishable. Shall declare punishable.
To forbid.
Shall declare punishable.
Okay.
To express an unfavorable judgment,
Yes.
or to declare
Yes.
Declare as unacceptable. Yes. To prohibit. Ahí se nos cayó el anterior. To prohibit. No. To prohibit is. Yes. Fabricio, you're right. To forbid an activity by authority, rule of law. Okay. So more or less, you have solved it, and so you try to remember them or to write them down. So you will have this exercise done. Okay, this is the second one, and then you have the third one. Third one is, I don't remember because they are from last year, and I didn't have enough time to check them. Matching again. Is it another matching activity? Okay, the recitals. You know what the recitals are? Any of you?
No, I've never seen context.
No, because recitals, well, recitals is a homophone. You may say, well, the recital of Coldplay. I love Coldplay, but not. No, these are not recitals as regards music. They are recitals as part of a contract or a piece of law, for instance, an act or well, any kind of act or rule of law, because recitals are the background of the act. The recitals go at the first part, is an explanation of what follows on. So el prólogo, los antecedentes, well, but because they used to do that, or for instance, there is a convention, international convention, but the international convention needs some context. Well, the context goes on the recitals, is as this. the recitals. It's not the recital or one recital or every paragraph is one recital. No, it's in general, it's the recitals. The recitals is some sort of prologue. So I.C.E.R.D prologue or recitals. All of this, you're going to read it afterwards. I.C.E.R.D prologue or recitals. So you read it, the recitals, and then you have to match the concepts of discrimination, unjust treatment, segregation, colonialism, apartheid, equal treatment, imperialism, condom, and racial superiority with the possible definitions. It's a matching activity. Okay, you have to read them and then match them and prepare the solution. And then you will post all of these results on a forum, as I will show you. Here it says, temas de debate. So this is the forum, and forum to post your results. And there you post your results for the 3 activities. But then you have another activity, which is lastly, take one part of the I.C.E.R.D convention or one part of Mr. Luther King's speech that we are going to watch afterwards. But just in case you have it here, Mr. Luther King, I have it there. And then it must be one part of the text of the speech which is more meaningful to you. Transcribe it, explain its meaning, and state why it is so meaningful to you. So this is the assignment for this week. Okay. So now I shut down the platform, the classroom, and then go back to my presentation. We go to the classroom, we did it. Okay, any doubts so far?
No.
Okay, Fabrizio?
No, everything is so clear. I just, as I cannot really join to every single class, I try to.
Yes, you follow me. You follow me through the
platform.
classroom. I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
And your accomplishments. Okay. Well, the second part. So now we start analyzing the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination. You know that last year I started with the backgrounds. The backgrounds take into account what happened during because I didn't prepare that part today, but the thing is that this convention has some backgrounds. The backgrounds go back to the Second World War and what happened with the Jewish people and all kinds of other people that weren't Aryan people, and the Shoah and Holocaust. So all of what happened during the Second World War delved into this International Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination, because it has to do with the Shoah and the Holocaust. But in fact, this convention took part in, I think, in 1965. So I think that it was 20 years after the end of the Second War. Okay, the I.C.E.R.D convention was adopted and opened to signature for signature and ratification by the General Assembly in 1965, as I said, yes, and entered into force in January 1969. So the I.C.E.R.D is a specific international instrument that defines a particular form of social practice, racial discrimination, and specifies a program of legal obligations necessary to combat it. Okay. So I.C.E.R.D. It consists of a preamble or recitals, remember, preamble, and 25 articles divided into 3 parts. Who wants to read the sum of the parts, please? Fabrizio?
Yeah, the convention consists of a preamble of 25 articles divided into 3 parts. Summary: prevention of discrimination, condemnation of apartheid, prohibition of incitement, promotion of tolerance, dispute resolution mechanism, individual complaints mechanism, obligations beyond existing constitution, hate speech, immigration, and indigenous people.
Indigenous people, yes. Well, okay. States parties condemn racial discrimination and I think that this is one of the paragraphs of the I.C.E.R.D Convention, and undertake to pursue by all appropriate means and without delay a policy of eliminating racial discrimination in all its forms. Vanessa, would you like to read this part, if you may? Are you there or not?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Proclaims? No.
The I.C.E.R.D,
It proclaims that parties to the convention believe theories of superiority based on racial difference are scientifically false, morally condemnable, socially unjust, and dangerous. Sorry.
Yeah. You easy your way. You at your time, at your pace. They also believe.
They also believe that there is no justification for racial discrimination in theory or in practice anywhere.
Anywhere. So no justification at all. Never there's a justification for racial discrimination. That's interesting. Because sometimes, for instance, in our country, or I think in other countries too, they say, well, why there's one person from, I don't know where, from South America, because if they are from the north, they don't say though. From South America, Peruvians or Bolivians or whatever, and they say why they provide them with health or with whatever. And the I.C.E.R.D Convention says there's no justification at all. It is interesting. Well, I don't know what I did here. Okay. There's no justification at all. I.C.E.R.D. The I.C.E.R.D was included into an official act in Argentina, remember, because you have the convention, an international convention. Then the convention is ratified by at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 10 state parties, and then comes into force. But then it depends on every country. In our country, it was included into an official act or ley in Argentina on the 26th of April, 1968, which is la ley 17.722. On the other hand, it was ratified by Argentina on the 2nd of October, 1968. So it depends, you know, to be on an official act and to be ratified. There are 2 different aspects or moments in the timeline. Nowadays, it is one of the human rights instruments, the constitutional hierarchy, according to articles or paragraph 75 and 22 of the national constitution. You know that in our country, after 1994, we have the artículo 75 y 72, or paragraph 25 plus 22, and it says that 11 international conventions related to human rights are part of the constitution, and sometimes they are considered in a higher situation than even than the constitution. They have constitutional hierarchy. So one of them is the I.C.E.R.D Convention.
Sorry, may I ask, do you know if Argentina made some kind of exception about this convention? Is there any kind of exception?
I can consult that. I think that
Because
there is note.
I always wonder myself, what about the different, for example, visas that depends on where you're coming from, it's the place you can enter.
Reserves are you say, you are talking about the reserves.
Exceptions, yeah, the reserves.
The reserves. Yeah. So let's see. Are you seeing the webpage?
How play these kind of reserves in terms of free movement, then discrimination, and then all the international declarations when it comes to the most easy thing to compare about, that it's getting a visa to enter to a country? Because we know that maybe United States can or usually have certain reserves in different declarations, yes, because yes, they believe the human rights in another way than us, yes, or maybe different countries. But Argentina is known as like a really free country, but when you check the government webpage, you get that mostly the Africans country need a visa to enter to Argentina. And
enter Argentina, to enter Argentina. Yeah. No, enter to, is enter Argentina. With no to. Okay. Status of ratifications, apparently is reservations and no reserves. So for me it's new too. The difference is reservations and no reserves. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to read the reservations. What are them? Argentina. Are you seeing this or not?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. Yes. All of this is on the platform. Human rights instrument in elimination of forms of racial discrimination. ¿Y qué dice? Human rights instrument. A ver, vamos a hacer así. Let's see. Convención Argentina. Okay. Well, all the convention in Spanish, but I don't know. Buscar. Texto de las reservas. Apparently there's no reservas here.
No, it doesn't matter. Maybe
I think that there's no reservations because it says Argentina aprobó la convención, adquiere jerarquía constitucional, but I think that whether there were reserves, they would be quoted here because this is the moment and the place.
Yeah.
I will check it for next class. Lo raro es que no sale acá, porque yo le puse reservas. Ratification, accession, ratification. I think that there's no reservations for this convention. But you know that there are some reservations from Argentina, for instance, as regards the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but they are not, or the that surprised me. The CEDAW Convention, the Convention on the Rights of the Women, Argentina had some reservations, but they are not related to abortion, as many pro-life people say. They are related to another thing, but not related to abortion. That was a surprise for me because they used to say that Argentina made reservations as regards the CEDAW Convention and that the Argentina said that no abortion, etc. But the reservations are not related to that. Okay. Okay. So, where were we? This place. I think that it says race discrimination because the convention goes on trying to explain and define what race discrimination is. So ethnicity and race, because the I.C.E.R.D convention talks about ethnicity and race. So Angeles, would you like to read?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Race discrimination, ethnicity. It is a multifaceted quality that refers to the group to which people belong and or are perceived to belong as a result of certain shared characteristics, including geographical and ancestral origins, but particularly cultural traditions and languages.
Yeah.
Race. It refers to the group of a person belongs to as a result of a mix of physical features such as skin color and hair texture. Race supposedly reflects ancestry and geographical origins as identified by others or increasingly as self-identified.
Well, after having read this, can you differentiate ethnicity from race? I think I cannot. Ever. Multifaceted quality. Group. I think that ethnicity sounds better, and it's the same. Race is supposed
Because
to
I think
be.
that refers to like the group, like it's more like a whole. It's the group taking into account the group, the people belongs to, not just features of a skin, for example, skin color or physical features. I think race refers more to physical features and
Yes.
such characteristics, ethnicities like group and origins.
Yeah.
I'd never really thought of this before, but seeing
Yes.
these two definitions.
Yes. And I think that the two of them. Yes. Who is talking?
No.
Okay.
Vanessa. The cultural traditions and languages is important too.
For which of the two of them?
Ethnicity. That's what it says.
Ethnicity.
I agree. I think that the difference is ethnicity, it's more related to culture.
Okay.
Yes.
And race to the
physical appearance. But
pure.
Yes. And race is related to prejudice, bias, and bigotry. Yeah. And ethnicity is a more accepted term than race, of course. Than race. Okay, race discrimination. Laura, can you read it?
Yes. While race and ethnicity are different, they are overlapping concepts that are often used synonymously. Voy de nuevo. While race and ethnicity are different, they are overlapping concepts that are often used synonymously. A trend fostered by the increasing use, particularly in the United States, of the compound word race, ethnicity. In contrast, in Europe, race is being abandoned in favor of ethnicity.
Okay. You know what overlapping is? Overlapping. What is overlapping? No? To overlap is to go one over the other. So some overlapping is a term that is used as regards terms and words or concepts. So sometimes a concept is overlapping another concept. So when you say one term, sometimes or one area of terms or one area of ideas, you're overlapping another term. Super.
I think this is because both definitions are rather confusing because they share some characteristics. The definitions overlap in that way. That's why we find them confusing.
Yes, Angeles, can you pronounce the synonym, etc.?
You want me to pronounce what?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
yes, you are my dictionary today.
Yes, but I don't understand what word you want me to pronounce.
The synonymously.
Synonymously.
Synonymously. Synonymously. Okay. You know that when we have Thomas here, we use him as a dictionary. Okay, as a talking dictionary. So today you are our dictionary. So racism is a belief that states that some races are superior to others and is used to justify individual and collective actions that create and sustain inequality. That's the idea coming from the I.C.E.R.D. And what else? Racial prejudice. It consists in negative beliefs, perceptions, attitudes towards one or more ethnic and racial groups. And racial discrimination, it says there are some groups or individuals empirically identified by I.C.E.R.D. who are generally more vulnerable to racial discrimination prohibited by I.C.E.R.D. These are, among others, minority groups, ethnic, national, linguistic, indigenous peoples. You know that it says peoples because in fact people is a noun which is a collective noun. You say people, gente, but you say you always say people in plural. You cannot say the people is the people are all the time. People are, people are, people are, even though you're talking about la gente, una gente, no muchas gente. But when it says peoples, es los pueblos, las gentes, los pueblos. Well, in this case, it's los grupos populares, los grupos indigenous peoples, el grupo, las comunidades. Indigenous peoples, hay grupos, comunidades, otra, ahí sí es plural. En el primer caso es un collective noun, es un sustantivo colectivo que se usa siempre en plural, people. Les digo porque cuando yo entré en el instituto decía people is, y es un grave error. It's indigenous peoples, or the people are good, or I don't know, talkative. Okay, migrants, refugees, asylum seekers. These groups of individuals have indeed often been identified by I.C.E.R.D. as victims of racial discrimination in many societies throughout the world. Okay, that is so far the I.C.E.R.D. Convention y todo lo que tienen en la plataforma, en el aula virtual, todo eso sobre I.C.E.R.D. Convention. So now we are going to delve into a listening activity with a video on I.C.E.R.D. ¿Qué es esta listening activity? Tengo dos listening activities. La otra no es muy related to the I.C.E.R.D. Convention, pero era linda y divertida y la quise traer, me quise divertir con eso, me encantó. La estuve haciendo, ¿cuándo fue que la hice? Esta mañana a las 6 de la mañana. Porque yo allá en el tribunal estoy a full y realmente no llegaban, me levanté a las 6 para poder trabajar en algo que me gusta, que es esto. Que es la actividad, le digo, de Business English. But this activity is punctually related to the I.C.E.R.D. Convention. Let's see. La tengo por acá. I.C.E.R.D. and mixed practices. Por acá, ahí está. Well, the thing is that I have 5 questions, yes? And the 5 questions were on this, you know?
Yes.
I send them to you on this picture. What does I.C.E.R.D. stand for? You know, I think that you know this answer so far. When was I.C.E.R.D. adopted and by whom? What does it contain? Is it fixated on the notion of race itself or not? Let's see. The speaker says.
What is fixated?
Fixated. Está solo basada en la noción. Fixated. Está fijada. Es exclusiva the notion of race itself. And it says, it contains provisions on measures que los estados tienen que tomar, measures. On what? What measures? Yes? So those are the five questions. Then we have the keys here. So let's see. It is a 6 minutes video. Okay. ¿Dónde está? Ah, bueno, difícil. Acá. Ah, esperen. ¿Cómo tengo que hacer? Esperen. No. ¿Cómo era lo de share? Acá.
Okay.
Stands for the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. It's one of the core.
Vamos.
I.C.E.R.D stands for the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. It's one of the core United Nations conventions on human rights. It was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1965. And it contains a set of binding standards as regards racial discrimination. It's a fairly simple structure, but at least it does provide with a definition of racial discrimination based on race, color, descent, national or ethnic origin. Therefore, it's not fixated on the notion of race itself. Together with provisions on obligations, on special measures, on segregation and apartheid, on hate speech, on rights in general, on remedies, and on education. So it's a short instrument by United Nations standards, but nonetheless, it contains considerable norms of considerable importance in a fairly short space. If I could also say just very briefly that it was drafted in the period when decolonization of Western empires in particular was unfolding, and in the teeth of the international struggle against apartheid. And if you read the preamble to the convention, you'll find that context, I think, very, very clearly laid out for you. When the convention was adopted, many of the states that gave the convention their initial support argued that racial discrimination was something that occurred essentially in Western empires and under the apartheid system, but did not apply domestically. And certainly one of the efforts of the committee over the years, the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, has been to persuade states that it is also a domestic matter and encourage them to examine carefully the composition of their population by providing disaggregated data, and also examine carefully the state of their legislation and practice to see if it should be adjusted to the requirements of the convention, which it inevitably is. The committee constantly emits, I think, a stream of recommendations to states, large and small, as to ways in which their law and practice can and should be adjusted to meet the requirements of the convention.
Okay, I think that our questions go up to that part. Would you like to listen to it again or not? Was it clear?
Oh, yeah, I think it's quite clear.
Okay. 5 questions. Some of them you know already, even though without the video. 5 questions. What does I.C.E.R.D stand for? Who wants to say?
I think it's the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racism and Discrimination, something like that.
Okay, that's it. Let's see.
Yes.
International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination. Okay. Another one. When was I.C.E.R.D adopted and by whom?
Was adopted in 1965.
Yes.
1965, con acento en la 1965, and by whom?
By the General Assembly.
From the UN, the
Yeah.
General Assembly from the
The
UN.
UN. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. It was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1965. What does it contain?
I heard something about set of binding standards as regards racial discrimination.
Okay, let's see. It contains a set of binding. Remember what binding is? Is legal English binding. Bind, to bind is atar, no? Isn't it? To bind is to bind one thing to another. Binding in legal English means that is enforceable, that is mandatory. Binding law, binding rule, binding connection between the creditor and the debtor. Something is binding because it has a bond. In fact, a bond is la unión, a bond. But in this case, it's binding standards or binding rules que son obligatorias. Mandatory standards means. So it contains a set of binding standards as regards discrimination. Again, is it fixated on the notion of race itself? Esta me la contesta Laura. Is it fixated?
Momento que tengo que...
Justo.
Yo tomo conceptos y me los anoto, si no, no voy a...
Está muy bien. Yo así también. Yo tomo clases de hebreo.
Tengo mi lista de
anoto
vocabulario
todo,
porque si
anoto
no,
con la fonética y me reta la profesora porque no tengo que anotar con la fonética. Hay que anotar todo. Sí. Is it fixated on the notion of race itself?
I couldn't get what he said.
Okay. Tatiana, did you listen to it? Is it fixated on the notion of race itself?
Sorry, this part I don't understand very well.
Okay, because it talks past, very native-like. Fabrizio, is it fixated on the notion of race itself?
No, even though they gave like some ideas about what is race, color, but it is not a fixed notion, so I think it's able to change it with the time. That's the idea.
Yes, and interpreted with the changes of time. It says no. I didn't explain much. La gota no llegó al río acá. Okay. No. It contains provisions on measures that states party should take. On what provisions? Measures on what?
I think I heard one about education. I couldn't write down everything, but
yes.
Yeah.
Education. And anyone else? Anything else? Okay, let's see. It contains provisions on measures: segregation, apartheid, hate speech, on rights, he says rights, on remedies, and on education. Okay, excellent. I think that the pronunciation of this person is excellent. I love him.
Yes.
Yes.
Come on.
So British.